Finding my sister in our childhood bedroom trying on Mom's wedding dress was the moment I realized our family would never be the same again. When Mom passed away 3 years ago from cancer, she left behind so many things that felt impossible to sort through. Her jewelry box still smelled like her perfume, her books had notes scribbled in the margins, and hanging in the back of her closet was the ivory silk wedding dress she wore when she married Dad 32 years ago. The dress was absolutely stunning, hand-beaded with tiny pearls and delicate lace trim that took her mother 6 months to sew by hand. Mom always said she wanted to pass it down to one of her daughters someday, but we never really talked about the specifics because nobody wanted to think about a world without her in it. After the funeral, Dad couldn't bear to go through Mom's things, so it fell to me and my younger sister to handle everything. We divided up her jewelry, donated most of her clothes to charity, and kept the really special pieces. The wedding dress was something we both agreed should stay in the family, but we never decided who would get it. I guess I always assumed it would be mine since I'm the older daughter and I was the one who spent hours with Mom going through old photo albums, listening to stories about her wedding day, and hearing about how she felt like a princess in that dress. My sister got engaged last fall to her boyfriend of 2 years. They're both pretty young, she just turned 24 and he's 26, but they seem happy together and he treats her well. When she started wedding planning, I offered to help however I could. We went dress shopping together a few times, and she tried on probably 50 different gowns. Nothing seemed quite right though. She kept saying she wanted something unique, something with history and meaning. I suggested she look at vintage boutiques or maybe consider having something custom-made, but she seemed frustrated with all the options. About 6 months ago, she started acting weird around me. She'd change the subject whenever I brought up wedding planning, and she stopped asking for my help with things. I figured she was just stressed about the wedding and maybe wanted to handle things on her own. Planning a wedding is overwhelming, especially when you're trying to do it on a budget, and I didn't want to be pushy or make her feel like I was trying to take over. Then 2 weeks ago, I stopped by Dad's house to check on him and maybe grab a few things from my old room. He's been struggling since Mom died, and I try to visit regularly to make sure he's eating and taking care of himself. When I got there, I could hear movement upstairs, which was odd because Dad usually stays downstairs in his chair watching TV. I called out to let him know I was there, and my sister's voice called back saying she was just getting something from her room. I went upstairs to say hi, and as I was walking down the hallway, I heard the sound of a zipper and some rustling fabric coming from behind her bedroom door. Something made me knock instead of just walking in like I normally would. She told me to wait a minute, and when she finally opened the door, she looked flustered and guilty. Her hair was messed up and she had this weird expression on her face like she'd been caught doing something she shouldn't be doing. I asked if everything was okay, and she said she was just looking through some old things. I didn't think much of it at the time, but something felt off. She rushed past me and practically ran down the stairs, mumbling something about being late for an appointment. After she left, I went into her room and noticed that her closet door was open and there were some hangers on the floor. It looked like she'd been trying something on, but I couldn't figure out what. The next week, I got a call from our cousin who lives across the country. She was so excited and started gushing about how beautiful my sister looked in the wedding dress photos she'd posted on social media. My heart stopped. I asked her what she meant, and she said she'd seen the pictures of my sister's final dress fitting and that Mom's wedding dress looked absolutely perfect on her. She went on and on about how meaningful it must be to wear something so special and how Mom would be so happy. I hung up the phone and immediately went to my sister's social media accounts, but I couldn't find any photos. She must have restricted who could see them, which meant she was deliberately hiding them from me. I felt sick to my stomach. I tried calling her, but it went straight to voicemail. I left a message asking her to call me back, but she didn't respond. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about Mom's dress and how we'd never actually decided who would get it. I kept telling myself that maybe I was overreacting, that maybe our cousin was confused or maybe my sister had found a dress that just looked similar. But deep down, I knew what was happening. I felt betrayed and hurt in a way I hadn't felt since Mom died. The next day, I drove to Dad's house with the spare key Mom had given me years ago. I went straight to her closet and looked for the dress. The garment bag was still there, hanging in the same spot, but when I unzipped it, my heart sank. The dress was gone. In its place was a note in my sister's handwriting that said she'd borrowed it and would return it after the wedding. I sat on Mom's bedroom floor and cried for probably an hour. It wasn't just about the dress, it was about the fact that she'd taken something so precious without even asking, and then tried to hide it from me. It felt like she was erasing me from this important family tradition, like my feelings and my connection to Mom didn't matter. Update 1. I confronted my sister that evening at her apartment. She answered the door in her pajamas, looking surprised to see me. I told her I knew about the dress, and her face went completely white. She invited me in, and we sat on her couch while she tried to explain herself. She said she'd been thinking about the dress for months and that she'd tried it on that day I caught her at Dad's house. She said it fit her perfectly and that wearing it made her feel connected to Mom in a way she hadn't felt since the funeral. She started crying and said she'd been too scared to ask me about it because she knew I wanted it too, and she didn't want to fight about it. I tried to stay calm, but I was so hurt and angry. I told her that taking something that belonged to both of us without discussing it first was wrong, and that hiding it from me made it even worse. She kept apologizing and saying she didn't know how to bring it up, but I felt like she was making excuses. She then said something that really shocked me. She told me that Mom had actually talked to her about the dress once when she was in the hospital during her last round of chemotherapy. According to my sister, Mom had said that she thought the dress would look beautiful on her and that she hoped she'd get to wear it someday. She said Mom had made her promise not to tell me because she didn't want to hurt my feelings, but that she'd always intended for my sister to have it. I didn't know what to believe. Mom had been on so much medication during those last few weeks, and she'd said a lot of things that didn't make sense. But the way my sister told the story, with so much detail and emotion, made me wonder if maybe it was true. Maybe Mom had made that decision and just hadn't told me. I left that night feeling confused and emotionally drained. Part of me wanted to believe my sister, but part of me felt like she might be manipulating the situation to justify what she'd done. I spent the next few days going back and forth, trying to figure out what was really true and what I should do about it. I decided to talk to Dad about it. I went to his house and asked him if Mom had ever mentioned the dress or said anything about who should have it. He looked uncomfortable and said that Mom had talked about a lot of things toward the end, and he couldn't remember every conversation. But then he said something that made my blood run cold. He told me that my sister had been visiting Mom in the hospital almost every day during those last 2 weeks, often when I wasn't there because I was working or handling other arrangements. He said he'd overheard them talking about the wedding and about family traditions, but he'd been so focused on just getting through each day that he hadn't paid close attention to the details. He did remember Mom being worried about me though. She'd told him several times that she was afraid I was taking on too much responsibility and that she wanted me to focus on my own life and happiness instead of always taking care of everyone else. This conversation with Dad made me realize something important. I had been the one handling most of the practical stuff when Mom was sick, coordinating with doctors, managing medications, dealing with insurance, and making sure all the paperwork was in order. I'd been so busy being the responsible older daughter that maybe I'd missed some of the quieter, more personal moments that my sister had shared with Mom. I started to wonder if my sister was telling the truth about Mom's wishes, and if maybe I'd been so focused on being the keeper of Mom's memory that I'd assumed the dress should be mine without really considering what Mom would have wanted. Update 2. 2 days later, something happened that changed everything. I was cleaning out some boxes in my apartment and found a folder of papers from Mom's last few months. Mixed in with medical records and insurance documents, I found a handwritten letter that Mom had written but never sent. It was addressed to both me and my sister, and it was dated just a few weeks before she died. In the letter, Mom wrote about how proud she was of both of us and how different we were from each other. She said I was strong and practical and that I'd always been the one to take charge when things got difficult. She wrote that she worried I'd spend my whole life taking care of other people and forget to take care of myself. She said my sister was more emotional and sensitive, and that she'd always been the dreamer in the family. Then she wrote about the wedding dress. She said she'd been thinking about it a lot and that she'd realized the dress itself wasn't as important as what it represented. She wrote that she wanted whichever one of us got married first to wear it, because she wanted her love to be part of our special day. She said the dress was beautiful, but what made it special was the love and joy it represented, and that love belonged to both of us equally. But then there was a part that made me gasp out loud. She wrote that she'd hidden a small family heirloom, her grandmother's ring that had been passed down for 3 generations, sewn into the lining of the dress. She said she'd put it there as a surprise for whichever daughter wore the dress, and that it was meant to be something old and something borrowed for the wedding day. I realized that my sister had no idea about the ring, and that she'd been planning to wear the dress without knowing about this hidden treasure. I also realized that Mom had never actually told either of us directly who should get the dress, she'd just wanted it to go to whoever needed it first. I called my sister immediately and told her I needed to see her. When I got to her apartment, I showed her the letter. She read it twice, crying the whole time. When she got to the part about the ring, she looked at me with complete shock. We decided to examine the dress together. We found the ring exactly where Mom had described it, sewn into a small pocket in the lining near the back of the dress. It was a delicate gold band with a tiny diamond that had been in our family for over 100 years. Mom had never mentioned it to either of us, and seeing it felt like getting one last gift from her. My sister started crying again, but this time it was different. She said she felt terrible about taking the dress without asking, and that she'd been so focused on her own feelings that she hadn't considered how her actions would affect me. She said she'd been scared to talk to me about it because she knew I was still grieving and she didn't want to add to my stress. I realized that I'd been doing the same thing, making assumptions about what Mom would have wanted without really considering my sister's feelings or needs. I'd been so caught up in being the responsible older daughter that I'd forgotten that my sister was grieving too, and that she had just as much right to want something that connected her to Mom. We talked for hours that night about Mom, about grief, about family, and about what it means to honor someone's memory. We decided that my sister should wear the dress to her wedding, just like Mom had wanted. But we also decided that after the wedding, we'd find a way to preserve it so that it could be passed down to the next generation, whether that was our future daughters or nieces or nephews. I helped my sister with the final alterations, and we made sure the ring was secure in its hiding place. We decided not to tell anyone else about the ring, it would be our secret, just like Mom had intended. On the morning of the wedding, I helped my sister get dressed, and when she put on the dress, she looked so much like Mom that I started crying all over again. Final update. The wedding was beautiful. My sister looked absolutely radiant in Mom's dress, and seeing her walk down the aisle felt like having a piece of Mom there with us. I stood up as her maid of honor, and when the officiant asked if anyone had anything to say, I almost mentioned the ring, but I caught myself. That secret was between me, my sister, and Mom. During the reception, my sister pulled me aside and showed me that she'd found the ring earlier that morning when she was getting dressed. She said she'd been so nervous about the wedding that she'd been fidgeting with the dress and felt something unusual in the lining. When she discovered the ring, she'd burst into tears and had to have her makeup redone. She'd been wearing the ring on a chain around her neck during the ceremony, hidden under the dress. She showed it to me and said it felt like having Mom's blessing on her marriage. She said she wanted to give it to me after the honeymoon, because she felt like I should have something special too, and because she knew I'd take good care of it. But I told her to keep it. I said that Mom had hidden it in the dress for whoever wore it, and that meant it was meant for her. I said that someday, when she had a daughter who was getting married, she could pass it down along with the story of how it came to be. The whole experience taught me so much about family, about grief, and about the difference between holding on to things and holding on to love. I'd been so focused on keeping Mom's physical possessions that I'd almost missed the point of what she'd really wanted to give us. I also learned that my sister and I grieve differently, and that's okay. She needed to feel close to Mom in a tangible way, and I needed to feel like I was honoring Mom's memory by being responsible and thoughtful. Neither of us was wrong, we just needed different things to heal. 3 months after the wedding, my sister and I started a new tradition. Every month, we get together and go through more of Mom's things, not to divide them up or decide who gets what, but just to remember her and share stories. We've found photo albums, recipe cards, books with notes in the margins, and so many other treasures that remind us of who she was. We've also started volunteering together at a local organization that supports families dealing with cancer. It's been a way to honor Mom's memory while also helping other people who are going through what we went through. Sometimes the best way to heal from loss is to help others who are experiencing the same pain. I still miss Mom every single day, and I still wish I could call her and ask her advice about things. But I've learned that her love didn't die with her, it lives on in the way my sister and I take care of each other, in the traditions we're creating, and in the way we're choosing to move forward together instead of letting grief drive us apart. The dress is now safely stored in a special preservation box, waiting for the next generation. My sister and I have decided that when the time comes, we'll let our future daughters or nieces decide together who should wear it, and we'll make sure they know the whole story, including the part about the hidden ring and the letter Mom never sent. Sometimes the most precious family heirlooms aren't the things themselves, but the love and stories that come with them. Mom's wedding dress will always be beautiful, but what makes it truly special is the way it brought my sister and me closer together and taught us what it really means to honor someone's memory.